All right, let's talk about economics. Now, when you hear that word, what do you think of? Stock charts? Crazy graphs? Some boring class you had to take? Well, what if I told you it's actually the secret operating system for your entire life? Seriously, it's not just about money, it's about how we all make choices, from the huge ones to the tiny ones we make every single day. I mean, think about what you're doing right now. Just watching this. You might think I'm just relaxing, but from an economic point of view, you are making a massive choice. You're spending your most valuable, non-renewable resource, your time. So, I've got a question for you. What did you give up to be here right now? Hmm? Could you be working, napping, studying for a test? That choice, that trade-off, that is the absolute bedrock of what economics is all about. And that's really the core idea. The fancy word for it is scarcity. We all have limited resources, time, money, energy, but our wants are pretty much unlimited. Economics is just the study of how we deal with that fundamental problem. It's the science of choice. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, at the most fundamental level. You. How do you make decisions as an individual? Well, it turns out it all comes down to just a few key principles. The first one is so simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You probably heard the old saying, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And it's true. To get one thing we like, we almost always have to give up something else we like. It's a trade-off. Every time. Let's make this super clear with an example. So meet Selena. For every single hour she spends studying economics, she's giving up an hour she could have spent studying psychology, or napping, or playing a video game, or earning some extra cash. She can't do it all at once. Every decision she makes is a fork in the road. So because we're always facing these trade-offs, every single decision has a cost. But here's the kicker. It's not always the price tag you see. The real cost of any choice is the value of the road you didn't take. And economists have a name for this, and it is maybe the most important concept in the whole field: opportunity cost. It's the value of the next best thing you had to give up to get what you wanted. Think about the cost of college. This is a perfect example. You might think the cost is just tuition, books, and rent, right? But the real, often hidden cost is the salary you are not earning because you're in school instead of working full-time. For a lot of people, that lost income is the single biggest expense of getting that degree. Okay, so we've looked at how you think as an individual, but of course, we don't live on desert islands. Our choices bump into each other and affect each other all the time. So let's scale up and look at how we interact. A common mistake is to think of the economy as a big competition, a zero-sum game where for me to win, you have to lose. But that's just not how it works. A core principle is that trade, just voluntary exchange, can actually make both sides better off. Let me show you what I mean with a great example. You've got Naomi Osaka, the tennis superstar. She can probably mow her lawn in, say, 2 hours. She's a world-class athlete, after all. But in those same 2 hours, she could be filming a commercial and earning $30,000. Now, her neighbor, Hari, he's a bit slower. It takes him 4 hours to mow the same lawn. In those 4 hours, his next best option is working at McDonald's, where he'd make about $50. So let's look at the opportunity cost. For Naomi Osaka to mow her own lawn, the cost is a staggering $30,000. For Harry, the cost is just $50. So does it make any sense for the best lawnmower, Naomi, to mow her own lawn? No way! She should go film that commercial and pay Harry to do the job. As long as she pays him more than $50 and less than 30 grand, they both come out ahead. They both win. That right there is the magic of trade. These kinds of beneficial trades happen in what we call markets, which is really just a fancy word for any place where buyers and sellers get together. Now, the amazing thing, as the father of economics Adam Smith pointed out, is that when people like Naomi and Hari just act in their own self-interest, they're often guided by an invisible hand to an outcome that benefits everybody. Now, as this quote reminds us, markets aren't always perfect, but they are generally the most effective way we've ever found to organize all this economic activity. Okay, we've gone from you to us. Now let's zoom all the way out. Let's look at the big picture, the principles that explain how the entire economy works as a whole. So let's start with a really stark fact. Why are there such huge differences in living standards around the world? I mean, why is the average person in the US so much wealthier than the average person in India? It's one of the biggest and most important questions in all of economics. And the answer, believe it or not, is surprisingly simple. It's not about natural resources. It's not about having a big army. It's not even really about how much money a country prints. A nation's wealth comes down to one thing: its ability to produce stuff. The key word here is productivity. How much stuff can we produce for each hour of work? That's it. If you want to understand why some countries are rich and others are poor, the very first thing you have to look at is their productivity. And get this is a totally mind-bending idea. Because of a century of productivity growth, you, right now, with your smartphone, with access to modern medicine, with the ability to fly across the country, you probably have a higher quality of life than John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest people in all of history. He had all the money in the world, but he couldn't buy an antibiotic or stream a movie. Productivity is what makes those things possible for all of us. So we have covered a ton of ground, right? But the goal here wasn't to get you to memorize a bunch of facts. It was to give you a new way of seeing the world, to hand you a toolkit you can use in your own life. We journeyed from the micro to the macro. We started with how you think in terms of trade-offs and opportunity costs. Then we saw how we all interact through trade in markets to make everyone better off. And finally, we saw how the whole system, the big picture, is driven by productivity. And that's really what it all boils down to. Economics isn't a rule book filled with answers. It's a lens. It's a mental model for understanding the choices people make, the way our world is structured, and the hidden forces that shape our lives every single day. So I'm going to leave you with this question. The next time you have a big choice to make, a new job, a major purchase, even just how you're going to spend your weekend, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what is the real opportunity cost here? What am I truly giving up? Because thinking like an economist, well, it starts right there.